History in a Small Town, the story behind the Charles W. Henry Backdrop Restoration Project, begun spring 2006 and completed summer 2008, Bradford, New Hampshire. As a Bradford, New Hampshire elementary school fourth grader wrote after viewing the restoration of the Henry Curtain at the First Baptist Church in Bradford, "I never knew such a small town could have so much history." When the class walked down East Main Street to visit the restoration, they stopped at Lafayette Corner to learn some of Bradford's history. Bradford's early history connects with America's national history in the person of the French general, the Marquis de Lafayette, who fought with General Washington in the American War for Independence. Following the war, returning soldiers were granted land in gratitude for their service. About 20 veterans received land in the Bradford area. 50 years later, the Marquis de Lafayette, now an old man, returned and visited every one of the 26 states at the time, including New Hampshire. After a great dinner in Concord with more than 200 New Hampshire veterans of war, he passed through Bradford on his route north to Vermont. Here he was met by his former comrades in arms, including General Abel Blood, who had prepared for the visit by getting out his old uniform. When he saw Lafayette, he was so excited that he threw his cocked hat into the barouche, hitting the guest in the face. Many years later, the stone was erected at what is known as Lafayette Corner to commemorate the visit. The Charles Washington Henry Curtain was unveiled on June 27, 2008, exactly 183 years to the day that Lafayette visited Bradford. A painted backdrop of an imaginary street scene was rediscovered in April 2006 in the Bradford Town Hall attic by Gary Wall. The town of Bradford, New Hampshire, was known as a center for vaudeville in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, so it was not surprising to see that a stage curtain commemorating this era survived. The initials CWH appear on the back of the curtain, which, at the time, suggested the possibility of identifying the artist. There is no information about the curtain in the Bradford Historical Society's records or how it found its way into the attic of the town hall. A volunteer committee was formed to raise conservation funds, with assistance from community volunteers and a local textile specialist, Deborah Bede. Christine Hadsell, a trained conservator and director of the Vermont Stage Curtain Project, identified it as the first curtain to be found in New Hampshire, painted by the well-known painter Charles Washington Henry. Henry was one of the most prolific and accomplished of New England artists of painted theater curtains. He wrote songs and plays, produced vaudeville, and traveled with his wife Martha Fisk and their 7 children as a traveling troupe. The family summered on nearby Lake Sunapee, which help explain the Bradford connection. Here you can see a picture of C.W. Henry alongside his large theatrical family, and baby Grace, one of the featured performers. Individuals who bought a square foot of the backdrop gave a great start to the funding for the Restoration Committee. Individual donations, private business contributions, and a $10,635 New Hampshire State Council on the Arts Cultural Conservation Grant enabled co-chairs Audrey Sylvester and Ruth Ann Harris to bring professional conservators from Curtains Without Borders to Bradford in October 2007 to restore the curtain. Local volunteers gave hundreds of hours of work to assist in the meticulous restoration. In May 2008, the Henry Curtain was installed on the second floor of the Town Hall stage after Bradford Selectmen granted special permission to allow the public access for an open house celebration, and Bradford firemen provided fire watch protection. Fundraising got underway. Shown here is a $500 donation from Public Service of New Hampshire. Accepting the donation from PSNH Representative Slu Blothenberg were Audrey Sylvester, Carol Conforti Adams, Amy Blitzer, and Carol Troy, Restoration Committee members. The Henry Curtain, as rediscovered in the Town Hall attic, was rolled for storage. It was found by climbing up a ladder and in past the beam crook chimney and past the king post truss, where it was found tucked into the beam structure over the town hall stage. Here you can see one of the first views of the unrolled curtain in Town Hall. On the back of the backdrop were the initials CWH. It was these initials on the back of the curtain, as well as the style of the painting, that enabled expert Christine Hadsell to identify the curtain as painted by noted stage painter and vaudeville scriptwriter Charles Washington Henry. Also on the reverse of the backdrop is a difficult-to-decipher unknown name, possibly Johnny McFair or McFain, written in script on the back of the curtain. It's not known who this person was, but it is likely that this is merely some performer biding his time before entering on stage, making his mark, so to speak, by leaving his name on the backside of the curtain. Here you can see the Henry curtain on the town hall floor, showing substantial damage to the upper right corner. This picture was taken in May or June of 2006. Here are some other photographs showing the worst damage of the curtain, both the upper right corner and a rather large square tear that was found on one section. Here we see the Bradford Henry Conservation Project directors Ruth Ann Harris and Audrey Sylvester with the professional restoration team members Sarah Milton, Deborah Bede, and Mary Jo Davis. In October of 2007, the restoration team located its efforts in the vestry of the First Baptist Church. Shown here is the team of professional restorers, artists Sarah Milton and Mary Jo Davis, textile expert Deborah Bede, and Christine Hadsell, director of the Vermont Stage Curtain Project, evaluated the needs of the curtain and began its initial mending. The first step was to repair the upper right corner, which showed the greatest damage. After careful unrolling of the curtain, it was vacuumed meticulously in preparation for restoration. Here you see Audrey Sylvester, volunteer team member and co-director of the project, vacuuming the back of the curtain. After being vacuumed, the restorers carefully dry sponged the surface to blot out dirt. Amy Blitzer, a team member of the volunteer restorers, carefully dry sponges to remove 100 years of soil. This is a good example of how much grime was actually removed from the backdrop. On the left you can see a clean white sponge, and on the right, a sponge after having cleaned the backdrop. The extensive tear on the upper right part of the curtain needed special attention, and here is the beginning of the preparation. The conservator skillfully draws together threads of tears in preparation for applying a muslin patch. Muslin patches were ironed onto the back of the curtain to stabilize the backdrop and to fill in tears in preparation for in-painting. The process of filling in the gaps of the pictures lost over time. Distilled water was dampened into blotting paper and applied to the backdrop to add moisture in preparation for the application of muslin backing to stabilize the edges of the curtain. Here, Deborah Bede is using an iron attaching the muslin to once again stabilize the edges. Here, Selectman Andrew Pinard views the restoration process with artist Sarah Milton of Vermont. More mending. This shows the process of mending tears in the curtain. Adhesive-backed cloth was cut to fit the tears and carefully ironed onto the curtain. Mary Jo Davis, conservator of the Vermont Stage Curtain Project. After hanging the curtain, she began in-painting the scene where it had faded or was missing. Artist Sarah Milton, also of the conservation team, helped to fill in segments of the curtain using a process called in-painting. Here you can see the restored, in-painted upper right section of the curtain. On Thursday, October 18th in 2007, there was an open house reception for the restored Henry curtain in the First Baptist Church vestry. The artists created color charts to help matching the watercolor paints for restoration. These paint palettes were used extensively by the artists in the process of restoration. The color palettes were used to match the new paint with the old paint already on the backdrops. Here we see George Silly, a member of the volunteer team, posing with the completed curtain. Here we see a detail of the curtain showing a cigar store Indian. This is the only Henry curtain known that features a cigar store Indian. There are two possible explanations for this placement. The first relates to a photograph in the town hall of Bradford-born R.G. Sullivan, whose portrait resides in Bradford's town hall. At one time, Mr. Sullivan's company was the country's largest maker of the 10-cent 724 cigar. Shown here also is one of the R.G. Sullivan cigar boxes. The second explanation relates to the well-known vaudeville team of Will Cressy and Blanche Dane, natives of Bradford. They summered on Lake Sunapee, as did the Henry family. Will Cressy is reported to have included his cigar store Indian in one of his backdrop scenes as a plug for a store in his hometown of Bradford. Did Cressy possibly commission Henry to create this backdrop? We may never know, but it is an intriguing possibility. Here, Deborah Bede, Ruth Ann Harris, and Christine Hadsell view the finished curtain. The fourth grade classes of the Bradford Elementary School walked over a half-mile to the First Baptist Church vestry to view the curtain in the process of restoration. After having the opportunity of viewing the restoration in progress and being able to ask questions of the restoration team, the students gathered on the front steps of the First Baptist Church, where Andrew Pinard, professional magician, performed magic of the vaudeville era. Here we see a complete view of the finished restoration of the Henry curtain. In addition to the extensive repairs of the tears and in-painting, the backdrop also received a new roller, enabling it to be stored in a proper condition. Here we see the Henry curtain completed and wrapped in preparation for hanging in Town Hall. Here is the entrance to the historic Bradford Town Hall, where the curtain will be installed. Built in 1797 and originally located at the historic Bradford Center, the building was disassembled and rebuilt in its present location in 1863, the middle of the Civil War. With all the names in the town cemeteries of young men who went to the Civil War, one wonders how they got sufficient manpower to move it such a distance. The Bradford Town Hall is listed on the National Register of Historical Places. Here is a view of the steeple of the First Baptist Church from a window on the second floor of the town hall. Here we see a view of the stage and the second floor of the town hall prior to installation of the Henry backdrop. This large hall was used for many years for town meetings, for private functions, and also for many, many dances. The ceiling is that of tin and has a substantial tin pattern running in a cornice all the way around the edges of the room. One striking piece of architecture is the rondel window, situated just below the peak, centered over the front door of the town hall. Here we can see the rondel window from the inside in the attic, where the backdrop was stored for many, many years. This window, as all of the other windows in Town Hall, were restored in 2008. Here we see the restoration of the windows in Town Hall. This was effected by Jason Labby and his team. At the rear of the stage, there is a rear stairwell that exits on the first floor of Town Hall. After its repair, restoration, and mounting on a new roller, the Henry backdrop was installed above the stage in the Bradford Town Hall by Robert Breyer and his team from Showworks of Vermont. They used a variety of eye bolts, tracking, and rope to rig the backdrop at the rear of the stage so it can be unrolled and enjoyed by Bradford citizens. After the installation, the backdrop was rolled up and wrapped in black fabric to protect it from the sun and dust. Once installed in the Bradford Town Hall stage, artist M.J. Davis returned to Bradford to do some final touch-up painting on the backdrop. There are some other notable pieces in the Bradford Town Hall. As you climb the stairs to the second floor of the Town Hall, you can see that Bradford quilters have created a quilt to commemorate Bradford's 1987 bicentennial celebration. A mural created by Kearsarge Regional Elementary Schools at Bradford fifth graders commemorates Bradford's 1987 bicentennial celebration, and here you can see several details of the mural, including a picture of Town Hall and of the train station. From its rediscovery in the attic of the Bradford Town Hall, through its process of restoration, repair, and ultimate installation in Bradford Town Hall, the Henry backdrop reminds us of a wonderful and rich history of which we were a part. And now, thanks to the efforts of community volunteers, local businesses, and professional restoration artists, every Bradford citizen can enjoy the restored Henry backdrop.